Was there an Adam? Was there an Eve?
Hey, everybody, this is Harvey Sluggo Wasserman. We're back here for the 58th, count them 58, Grassroots Emergency Election Protection Coalition Zoom gathering. Did we talk about protecting our elections and much, much more? We are broadcast or podcast every Thursday, 5 p.m. at the Progressive Radio Network, prn.fm. That's 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you, Gary Null, for keeping that network going for so long. It's I've actually had over 450 shows on the Progressive Radio Network, and we've started podcasting these meetings. It's a great plus. We are gathered with 50 people here to jump into a highly important and really chock full meeting. I mean, the longer we go on with these issues, and we are planning to go till at least 2024, the denser it gets. And we're going to start with talking briefly about Joe Biden endorsing the filibuster, which is mind-boggling to me, but that's what he's done, and we need to deal with that. We're going to talk with Charles Moreland and Joel Segal about the upcoming August 28th march in Washington, D.C. We hope that the COVID will allow us to have it. It's the 58th anniversary of the I Have a Dream speech. We will follow with Joel Segal to talk about the major summit and the drum circle we hope to have on the 30th, which is Monday in DC. The drum circle will be at Lafayette Park in Washington, across from the White House, and we will be delivering at least one solar panel to the White House, along with a plan to turn the White House into a greenhouse. We want the White House to be the first official residence of any country in the world to be 100% renewable powered. We're also going to talk with Joel Segal about the idea of an ALEC, a progressive ALEC, an organization. The original ALEC was funded by the Koch brothers to write right-wing legislation. We want to have our own organization to write left-wing, or at least progressive legislation. It's about time we did that. And so we're also then going to talk about with Rebecca Landau about her project mailing postcards in Georgia and elsewhere, the kind of grassroots organization that we really need to see done. And then we'll hit some other issues, but at 3 o'clock Pacific, 6 o'clock Eastern or thereabouts, we're going to be joined by Steve Rosenfeld, John BRAKEY, and Ray LUTZ for an update on what's going on in Arizona. As they say, you could not make this stuff up. I mean, as I mentioned this morning, in Phoenix, the Reverend Jesse Jackson, the Reverend William Barber were arrested at the office of Kirsten Sinema, the senator. If you guys, Mike, I just got a text from Charles Moreland, Steve Crusoe, Joel Segal. If you could send him a link, he's having trouble getting into the meeting, Charles Moreland, and we do want to talk to him, obviously. So if one of you guys can send him the link, that would be great. We are knee deep in all these issues about election protection, and we're also talking, of course, about protecting the earth. We've been talking with FILIBUSTER, who hopefully will join us if he's not already on the call, about bringing Greenpeace into the mix here. Greenpeace has a major campaign on election protection, and also, of course, I was senior advisor to Greenpeace in 1991 when they started their campaign against atomic power reactors, at least here in the United States. So we have a full agenda. I do want to start. We are obliged to cover this. We've been talking about the filibuster for a long time, with the dynamic that Joe Biden, current president of the United States, has endorsed the filibuster. Now, this put kind of a crimp on our campaign against the filibuster. It's not like there's not bipartisan representation in the Senate. The 50 senators, the 50 Republican senators, actually represent 42 million people fewer than the Democrats. And yet here we have a Democratic president of the United States worried about bipartisan representation in the Senate. I mean, it's beyond me. Does anybody want to comment on this before we move on? We see Charles Moreland has joined us. Valerie Cornelius, were you raising your hand, or did you have something to say about this? Does anybody else want to comment on the filibuster? Justin LeBlanc, go ahead.
So Sluggo, you just mentioned that people were arrested in front of Senator Sinema's office.
In it.
And that, yeah, so that is bizarre if you take a look at the flip side of all this, right? You can be arrested for a sit-in as a normal citizen, but if you're a senator and you decide that you want to send an email to stop all legislative activity, that's just normal.
Yeah, it is that we do have what, at very least, a double standard in this country. Howie Hawkins?
Yeah, I saw Biden say that on the CNN town hall, which he didn't mention it in his voting rights speech in Philadelphia. He didn't mention the filibuster. But what concerns me is New York Times reported on Friday that people in the administration are planning to run on the infrastructure in 2022 and think they can just mobilize enough people to overcome the voter suppression laws. Problem with that is, doesn't deal with the partisan gerrymandering, which is going to start on August 16th when the census data comes out, nor does it deal with the Republican legislatures that are taking the power to decide who won elections onto themselves. So I guess the other thing I'll note, the Washington Post has sort of got a running tally of Democratic senators that are not for filibuster reform. And it's more than Manchin and Sinema. It depends on how you count. Some of them are very mealy-mouthed, but I heard Pat Leahy ask point blank, are you gonna come out for filibuster reform? He said, I'm gonna go talk to the caucus about it. So it's more than Biden. We got a big problem.
It is, we do indeed. Dorothy Reich, thank you, Howie. Dorothy Reich, you gotta unmute.
But bottom line, I wrote something yesterday that Howie Klein actually put in his statement in his blog that that Biden never intended to pass any of these laws. This is just, he lied to us. He lied and he got elected. And in my opinion, he didn't intend to pass voting reform. He didn't intend to pass the infrastructure, the Green New Deal infrastructure. I don't know that he plans to do any of this. This guy is a right-wing Democrat, and I think he just did what he had to do to get elected. And if Bernie can force his hand, that would be great. But I believe that he lied. And I said also that I don't trust Clyburn. I said Clyburn wants his black voters to vote, not our black voters. And that's, you can tell by what he's doing in Ohio. So I don't know what's going on. I mean, I just think that Biden lied and that I didn't fall for it. I didn't believe it, but I think a lot of people did. And I think that he's just doing what he does. When he says that any filibuster is going to cause chaos, he means it's going to cause chaos because all these laws that are going to disturb all his rich benefactors are going to pass. He doesn't want that to happen.
Yes, and we know that Clyburn has gone into Ohio to oppose Nina Turner. So, you know, thank you, Dorothy. Bob Babcock?
Yeah, I've not heard much about the low-hanging fruit when it comes to the filibuster. And that is the carve-out for voting rights laws. They did it back years ago with the Republicans and voting for judges. They can do it for voting rights laws, and that way, we don't have that hurdle of having to overcome the filibuster. We just do an end run around it. So I think that's a good strategy. It's one that Greg Palast.
Yeah, you're assuming that.
Excuse me, I'm still talking.
Go ahead.
Okay, it's something that Greg Palast had mentioned to me a few weeks ago, and I think, you know, it's a stroke of brilliance. I don't think that we'll be able to get them to do away with the filibuster, but
Okay.
we do have a chance of getting them to do the end run with the carve out for voting rights. That's all I've got to say.
All right, thank you. Dorothy, real quick, and then we'll go to Jeffrey and then Charles Moreland.
You're assuming that Biden wants a carve out and he wants voting rights passed. That's an assumption that people are making. I don't make that assumption.
It's
Okay.
not all up to Biden.
All right, Jeffrey, real quickly, and then Charles Moreland. All right, Jeffrey, give him your hand up.
So all that stuff he did, just the climate, undoing Trump. What was all that? If what you're saying is true, then why did he do all that?
Well, that's not something we can answer in a short period of time. I think only a psychiatrist knows for sure. Charles Moreland, Charles?
Yes, regarding the filibuster, we don't have to try to divine Joe Biden's or anybody's motives. One thing is for sure, supporting the filibuster is stupid and undemocratic. The filibuster is antithetical to any democratic concept. To say that get rid of the filibuster will destroy the Congress is ridiculous. So ridiculous that I can understand why everybody doubts his veracity, I mean, show me one legislative body on the planet. Even the United States House does not have a filibuster. That's
You're
not
right.
democracy. That is minority rule, which sounds like what they had in South Africa. It's almost like apartheid.
I'm curious, do any state legislatures in the United States have a filibuster? No, I've never heard of it.
Show me one place where it exists, Harvey.
I have no idea. I've never heard of it. Roberta Eidman and Tatanka.
I have lost faith in either an infrastructure act or getting voting rights passed. And I'm not even going into motivations as much as efficacy, because we've been outplayed since the Obama years. But what I really would like to add to the idea of election protection, instead of the things that Mark Elias is doing and the different activist groups, I think we have to be assuming that we're going to be working from behind, and we're going to have to do what they did in Florida when the felons got their disenfranchisement and that they couldn't get they had to pay all that money. A lot of groups stepped forward to either get them the IDs or pay things off and have water stations and whatever put up. Because I think we're going to have to be prepared to show up in the red states doing things to help people get out to vote under the detriments that are going to be laid on them. Because Mark Elias is not going to win every case. And I'm 100% convinced that Sinema and Manchin have some little game going and it's working for them, and they are not going to get rid of the filibuster and pass voting rights. So
Hello, did you get muted? Did she get muted?
was I muted all along?
Just briefly, yeah. Just for a minute.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
we heard most of you.
Yeah, it's just we got to assume we're not going to have Mark Elias saving us and getting voting rights passed to block the red states.
Right.
We're going to have to really work on protecting and getting voters to the polls under horrible situations in 2022.
Absolutely. Thank you. Tatanka?
Well, institutionalized racism and institutionalized economic inequality isn't the purview of one political party. It's endemic in society. It's up to us. We need what we're talking about is creating a coalition that can mount a massive movement to support what the majority of Americans deserve and want.
Well stated. Justin, and then we're going to go back to Charles. We want to start talking about the August 28th event. So Justin and then Charles.
So something to dwell on with all that, and that is Manchin lives in a state where they are economically less productive, or less economic opportunity than other states. One of the ways that that can be overcome is through a Green New Deal. And yet I don't see such a thing being proposed in order to overcome all of the stated objections, that Manchin might have. Okay, if you're going to have to play politics, then play politics by, MMT subsidies if you have to, but, play the Green New Deal because that's what his state wants. That's what the majority wants.
Okay, Tatanka, you wanted to say another word?
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to that. We in California with the Romero Institute anticipated this very scenario over a year ago, having a Biden, Kamala Harris, presidency, vice presidency, and having this corporate Green New Deal, corporate this, corporate that. That's why we are working to create a California Green New Deal, which will have state, a state banking, will have 40% of all jobs going to people most directly impacted. We'll have an indigenous part. We'll have, total change in agricultural to healthy soil. So it's taking on, and all the union workers jobs will be preserved, but they can't do it in nuclear and they can't do it in fracking. So we are counting on, but even with us, even with a 2/3 Democratic majority, it's going to take a massive coalition effort from the grassroots to get this passed, because PG&E is also already reorganizing. When we turn our lights on all up and down the California coast now, it's all renewable energy. PG&E is out of the business of deciding what energy we get. They just deliver it. But now they are lobbying for solar, but big solar farms in the desert, so they can reclaim their utility and control solar. We want to keep it on the rooftops, et cetera. So the plan is to get the California Green New Deal passed by the end of 2022, starting with Governor Newsom declaring a state of climate emergency, which started a campaign to do that now. And then to have whoever's running for president really run on a campaign of 10 years or less carbon neutrality. It probably has to be 5 to 7, the way things are spinning out of control. But the Biden plan never really intended to do anything. If you read it, it's 30 years, which will be far too late to make anything. And what we have to be aware of is this great reset. We're coming out of Davos with all the major corporations championing the Green New Deal, but basically doing it on their terms, which will drag it out, et cetera.
Right.
But we need a people's movement.
And I do want to mention one thing. It may seem small, but there's a major new movement in solar. PG&E and the big corporations want to do these big arrays in the desert that they can own. They'll just be nuclear power plants, except they'll be solar, which is better, but not great in the desert. One of the major new developments that's coming into renewables is floating solar panels. Now, it sounds like a bit of a sideshow, but if you put solar panels and float them on reservoirs and on aqueducts, especially the California aqueduct, it cools the solar panels. Solar panels operate better when they're cooled than in the heat. And it also cuts evaporation by 30, 40, 50%. So, in this terrible drought, if we can cover Lake Mead and the California aqueduct with solar panels, instead of putting them in the desert, we still want them on building rooftops. That still makes sense. But the solar panels now are going to have to start to be floated. And so
add community choice corporations, which is what we have in California, so that each community owns their own utility.
Yes, that's a big part of it. Okay, we're at 62 people. David Gurin, I think you're new with us, David?
Yeah, David Gurin. Yeah, that's an interesting idea about the floating solar panels. But I wanted to mention that actually there is a movement afoot, the Poor People's Campaign, actually directed by Reverend Barber and Reverend Theo Harris, is actually trying to get 4 demands done by August 6th. It's to remove the filibuster, to restore the 1965 Voting Rights Act and to pass the For the People's Act, and lastly, to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. So with the combination of those four together, we can we're building coalitions of people in labor and all walks of life, and this is being a very important movement, and
We'll
that's
put
part
the
of why
contacts,
Barbara
please, in the chat.
this office.
Put, David,
Thank you.
put how we can get a hold of you and how people can contact your group in the chat, if you would. George Ripley, and then we're going to go to, thank you, David.
Thank you.
We're going to go to George Ripley and then Charles Moreland to start talking about the August 28th event. George?
Yeah, I was interested to see some call out for a national strike September 15th or October 15th, I forget, but they were calling, among other things, for a $20 an hour minimum wage. And that really, you know, it's reasonable perhaps. I also wanted to add, and I just dropped that in there, but I also wanted to add, I can help here in DC if you need it with the drum circle and permits and anything like that.
Well, put your contacts in the chat, and George, we are in touch with you, and Tatanka and Charles Moreland. It's great to have you with us. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Let's go to Charles Moreland with an update on the August 28th event, 27, 28, 29, and then talk to Joel about the 30th. Go ahead, Charles, please.
Thanks, Harvey. First, I want to acknowledge that I did a quick Google search, and there are 13 states that have filibusters.
Wow.
And there are at least 5 countries that have filibusters. So I stand corrected, but it's still antithetical to democracy, and I stand by that story.
You're 100% right.
Regarding the Dream March on Washington for DC Statehood, Green Jobs and Justice weekend, it's going to be August 27th, 28th, 29th, and the 30th. I'm happy to announce that the Martin Luther King Jr. Justice Awards committee that's organizing and sponsoring the Justice Award presentation on that evening has a site, and it's the African American Civil War Museum. It's a perfect site because they have a large courtyard, as well as there's a park area right across the street from it, dedicated to African American Civil War soldiers. Most of the venues that I talked to in Washington are concerned about the Delta variant, and so it's very, very difficult. The Willard Hotel, some of the venues that we consider just are not willing to make a commitment, but this venue will be perfect. Is it possible, real quick, I sent a text to pull up the website real quick, www.douglascommonwealth.us, and share the screen. The reason why that's important is that we have all of the organizing plans have been posted on the website. And we have organizing toolkits. And if everybody will go to that site, it's been updated and improved. And you've seen us from the very beginning as we have started to build this website. So everything is going to be included. Everything you will need to participate in an actual event locally, and that means in DC, as well as in the 50 states. We want to have an actual event in 50 states, and we're going to have virtual events all over the place. So we have virtual event organizing considering, scroll all the way down. No, go back to the homepage and click onto the awards homepage, and then where it says click here, right there where it says March on Washington. No, go to the homepage and put and click to the homepage, yeah, homepage. There you go, and you see where it says click here. There you go. There you go. So scroll down real quick, Harvey.
Beautiful website.
Go back up real quick for everybody to the logo to the very top. See, Harvey came up with green instead of all blue. We had blue, so green. Then he said red, and so that's been changed for people who haven't visited the site for a while. Of course, scroll down real quick towards the schedule of events. See, we have African American Civil War Museum and that's 8:00 p.m. We're probably going to do that a little earlier, start earlier at 6:00. And we have the Dream March schedule, the prayer vigil. We're having a meeting tonight, in fact, of the faith based community at 7:00. And then there are some events under consideration. We're going to do the candlelight vigil around Washington, D.C., and that's the Veterans for Statehood. We've already decided to go and include that too. But look over these other events. We're going to make this a great weekend for organizing, and it's going to end going down. We have, go back to the top real quick. Let me see. Now go down and see if you see. But anyway, Joel is going to discuss the Justice Roundtable, National Justice Roundtable, which is going to be Monday. There it is. He already has a location. We just have to list it. But Joel has done an outstanding job, and people around the country are very enthusiastic about that because that's where we're going to set the agenda for organizing grassroots, organizations around the country stand up for DC Statehood, Green Earth, and justice. So we have an invitation. Go all the way back down. We have a dream going down. So invitation, lets people sign up, keep going, all the way down, all the way down. Add your organization, keep going, keep going. Organizing tools for Dream March organizing plan. So go to this site. It should have everything you need. It's going to include for everybody buttons, t-shirt design, all the materials, flyers that that people are going to want to design, all around the country. It's going to be in a format JPEG or PDF format, so you can just pull it off and print it, design your own materials, or use the material that we're going to provide. Any suggestions? Feel free.
Well, that's fantastic.
Okay.
Really great.
Thank you so much. See, outreach.
Thank you, Charles. Charles doing an amazing
Go
job here.
Right back, right there.
Really wonderful. George Ripley and David Gurin, real quick.
Stay right there.
George? No? Okay. David, did you have a hand? Okay. Tatanka? Did you want to speak?
I just want to thank Charles. Without Charles, this wouldn't be happening. So good job, Charles.
Fantastic. It is fantastic. Thank you so much, Charles. I do want to welcome, you can give us back the screen. Everybody get the link on there. It's an incredible website. Charles, I want to know who your webmaster is.
Harvey, one of the important things, Tatanka is heading up our boycott to end taxation without representation, and it might spread to boycott for some other things too. But Tatanka has done a great job with that. That's an event that I did not announce because Tatanka has to tell us when we're gonna have the press conference about that. Thank you.
Tatanka, you want to jump in on that, or you want to wait?
I'll wait just to say
Okay.
as you know, we have Dolores Huerta's participation, even though she's going to be in Mexico City. She has agreed to be, well, maybe Joel will report on that. I'll let him talk about that.
Okay. Real quick, Ruth Strauss, Lewis Parker.
Yeah,
and then we'll go
Harvey,
Joel
I just
Siegel.
wanted to make sure that Charles put his link in the chat. Thank you.
Okay, Charles, you got that?
Yes, doing it now.
Lewis
Thanks, everybody.
Parker.
You do.
I've put it in about 5 times already.
Okay, Lewis Parker.
Yes, I'd like to say something.
Go ahead.
Has anybody considered breaking up the Democratic and the Republican Party into smaller groups so that instead of having a binary choice about the filibuster, we'd have a choice among, say, 3 or 4 different groups, and that might be easier to maneuver than this binary choice.
It
that
would
we're
indeed.
facing.
Yes, I agree with that. And if you read my upcoming History of the United States, you'll know the People's Spiral of U.S. History, how they broke up the Socialist Party to get a duopoly, which is still with us, unfortunately. Okay, Joel Siegel, you want to take us down to Monday, August 30th, and also tell us about your idea, please, for a progressive ALEC to start writing legislation.
Yeah, I'm going to keep it short. I'm going to speak for about 45 minutes. Well, first of all,
You'll be
before I
muted
start,
for 42, so go ahead.
or 39, Charles Moreland, excellent work. My brother, my friend, but Harvey, you deserve a round of applause for what you're doing, both in keeping this group together, and what has come out of it is nothing short of amazing. So what's happening is on Monday, August the 30th, from 1 to 5, and then probably dinner from 5 to 6 or 7. There will be key leaders from election protection, voter suppression, clean energy, climate change, and then ending poverty and inequality. And there are a lot of leaders who realize that these issues are just much bigger than a nonprofit organization, well-intended, whether they're in DC or anywhere else. But if we're going to have real power, we have to get organized, and we're going to have to unite. Because progressives for decades, for whatever reason, chose to be in silos. The siloization of progressives on the left has been an abysmal failure. You can't take on the military industrial complex, the fossil fuel industrial complex, the Republican Party industrial complex, the corporate Democrat industrial complex with 8 or 10 well-meaning organizations. We think there has to be a unity movement, a solidarity movement, where we're going to create a national justice coalition, which quite frankly was Charles Moreland's idea. And then a national and a global justice coalition, because if we're going to save our planet from climate change, we're going to have to transition in every country in the world, especially the emerging economies of Brazil. You got China, which still likes to burn coal a lot and sell coal to other countries that are developing. Japan does the same. You can't do that with an American-only movement. So we're having people from Africa, African leaders, African ambassadors, African activists will be at Plymouth, the Plymouth Church. And we're lucky because we've got, I think, one of the best ministers in the country, African-American minister, Graylin Hagler, who has agreed to sponsor us, which is a very big deal. And then because of Tatanka, Tatanka hooked us up with Dolores Huerta. For those who do not know Dolores Huerta, please Wikipedia her. She was one of the most important leaders in the farm workers movement in the 60s, and at her early 90s, she still continues to organize for social justice. She loves this idea of a united progressive umbrella, and she will be our senior advisor, one of them. What are we going to try to achieve? I'll just break it down. Any questions, people, please ask me. Number one, we want an agreement from key leaders from ethnic communities, from all backgrounds. We're really making sure that we have people from ethnic communities who often are not represented in the Beltway. So we're inviting Muslim groups, Jewish groups, African, East Indian, Asian Pacific American, Latin American to be in leadership, not in the back of the room, but in leadership. of this coalition. We want to explain why we're doing this and make sure that we get buy-in for the concept, which I believe is already happening. And then we're going to start organizing. You know, we're putting up our website, having a monthly meeting. Bernie Sanders had millions and millions of people who voted for Bernie Sanders tend to read the book, Our Revolution. There were up to 10 to 15, 20,000 people who were at his rallies, but then after he quit running, where did all those people go? We want to make sure that progressives in 435 congressional districts in 50 states have a home that they can be a part of. I don't think that Mahatma Gandhi was wrong when he organized the Indian National Congress. I don't think that Nelson Mandela was wrong when he organized, the Indian National Congress, and then Mandela, the African National Congress, and then SNCC. And I can go on and on, Students for Democratic Society. Somehow we've done the opposite of what history has showed us. Progressive revolutionary political history works, and that's unified progressive movements.
Okay. So
ALEC,
the Roundtable
Progressive ALEC.
Summit will happen on Monday, and you're also going to set up an organization to draft progressive legislation. Can you tell us about that real quick?
Yes, we're going to set up a progressive ALEC. Now, ALEC is the right-wing organization that introduced regressive, anti-human being legislation that, you know, they're very, very powerful ALEC. We're going to create a progressive alternative where bills like Medicare for All, which I was the author of, Jobs for All, I was, you know, authored that bill as well, wouldn't just be like, oh, that's a great idea, but actually have enough, you know, real critical mass to get them passed, or bills that we may not know about that progress. When I worked in Congress, every day I'd see a really progressive bill, but sadly, no one either knew about it or there wasn't a serious lobby to get it passed. We're going to change that, and we will introduce a 100% clean, renewable energy rapid transitions bill. That will be introduced. We hope to introduce a bill that will provide for Social Security, anyone who gets Social Security, $3,500. It's disgusting and immoral what our seniors go through. And I'll conclude by saying the days of siloed organizing are officially over. That's like Bill Clinton saying, the era of big government is over. The era of siloed organizing is over. We're going to have the president of National Organization of Women will be there, the executive directors of various organizations, but we're also bringing in people that you may not have heard about, but they're actually doing great organizing behind the scenes. And we're bringing in artists. We're bringing in a lot of artists, a lot of musicians and folks like that. So thank you.
Thank you. Really great, Joel. Thank you for your great work. I've got Rebecca Landau waiting in the wings to talk about some Georgia organizing. Let me first get Arthur Levine in, who has just joined us, had not had a question yet. Arthur, you want to say something, please? A great journalist and a major activist here on election protection.
Basically, I came in late. I just want to understand, since what is the lay of the land right now, either among allies of this group or people in the group or allies in terms of grassroots organizing in Arizona by citizens of Arizona and
okay, Art, we're gonna have a full report on Arizona after the top.
No, it's not about the Arizona audit. I meant in terms of filibuster organizing on Sinema and Manchin. Where does that stand? Either.
All right, so Jesse Jackson and Reverend William Barber were both arrested this morning in Kirsten Sinema's office. Can we return to Arizona after the top of the hour? Please stay with us. Okay, we appreciate that. Justin, and then we'll go to Rebecca Landau. Justin LeBlanc, did you want to say something?
Yeah, sorry, I was on the other screen typing to Joel in the chat, but wanted him to follow up with Tatanka and follow up with us on the idea of the new South by Southwest, the concerts for compassion, both living wage and climate change. And we can really actually organize the world through music, I think, is probably one of the common grounds that works both nationally and internationally.
Yes, that's definitely true. I don't know about what you're saying by Southwest. Is that a major concert?
We're going to make it just as big, if not bigger, better than Burning Man.
That sounds great. Thank you for that, Justin. And keep in touch with us on that. I want to mention that if you look in the chat from David Garan on August 2nd. He mentioned this, but I want to reiterate the Poor People's Campaign will be a major rally in DC and 4 demands, to pass 4 demands by August 6th. So take a look at that in the chat, okay? We have 66 people with us. Rebecca Landau, you have a very powerful and important event going on, or organizing strategy in Georgia. Do you want to tell us about it, please?
Yes, thank you. Actually, I was hoping that Yvette Maxwell would be here because she's actually on the ground outside of Columbus, Georgia, Muskogee County, which is the only county not involved in this postcarding. And I'll tell you about that later. But unfortunately, though double vaxxed, she might have come down with COVID. So she's actually waiting for results today. So hopefully that's not what's going on. So I'm going to speak for her. This is the Every Person's Rural Georgia Postcard Project. It's a loose coalition of folks in and out of Georgia who've begun a postcarding project to rural Georgians who are on the about to be purged from Georgia's voter list. The list is about 23K folks. The Georgia Dems are doing nothing because of Delta COVID. And I know on the ground in Georgia, and I'm starting to hear this in Mississippi, I do not have as much information, but for sure on the ground in Georgia, Republicans are renting space, theaters, running barbecues, and they're organizing trainings for door-to-door outreach. So, you know, this project is kind of a national, but it project that is grown out of a very local coalition. And the name is because we're sick of folks waiting for a savior or the Democratic Party to do something instead of choosing action to make a difference. So this is the coalition. We're hoping to reach out to more allies. Now, this is rural, very specifically rural. And the reason is that all the 4 major cities in Atlanta are being covered both by NAACP and Stacey Abrams' work. And what we're, the list deactivation is due to change of address or lack of activity, so that we are hoping at a minimum we can get a family or a neighbor to contact people. So just want to let you know that. I'm going to drop it into the chat, what anybody who wants to get involved with this postcarding project. And we're already 1/3 through the list. So this is, again, pulling people in from all over the place. And this is including using the platform Twitch, streaming. So, you know, all the young ones, they're pulling me along. So thanks very much. And that's Georgia.
Well, thank you. That's exactly the kind of organizing we want to hear about. Your contacts, I hope, are in the chat. And I'm sure you're in touch with Andrea Miller. And this is, you know, you got to wonder why the Democratic Party is not doing this. It's mind-boggling. This is basic grassroots organizing 101. We're thrilled to see you, Rebecca, and the people you work with doing it. Where is the Democratic Party on this?
There seems to be some kind of hold vis-a-vis COVID. There was supposed to be knocking on doors. Now, the Republican organizing teams, don't seem to care about the Delta variant. I get that. But at the same time, we don't have time. We have to get these voters registered, and the next part of this project is literally going to be people standing on street corners with clipboards, and we're going to be stopping people and, masked and from a distance. And we want to make sure everybody is checking their voter registration.
And, are you setting up democracy centers, storefronts in these small towns?
I'm not. I'm more of a nexus, and these are like really loose coalitions of people. So this is, Yvette and her people would be amazing to start a democracy center, and I'm hooking them up with Andrea, and we're taking some trainings with Andrea Tuesday. But, what's not happening is not okay. And rural Georgia, like the phone banking that Democratic Party is talking about is not okay, because the fact is there's a lot of people who don't have phones, so anyway, so that's my report from Georgia, and we're third through a 23K list, and I'll put all our information in the chat. And again, I don't want to take responsibility for this. This is why we're really calling this the Every Person's Project, because you can do it. You can go to the Secretary of State, you can download that information, and you can start something. So, voter registration. Here we go.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. Much appreciated on that. Lewis Parker, did you want to make a comment on what Rebecca has just purported? Lewis Parker, you have a hand up? Hello? No? Okay. Well, this is truly an amazing report. I did want to mention also, I put it in the chat, in the invitation, I have a piece at Reader Supported News. It does appear that the Supreme Court is lining up to reverse Roe v. Wade. I mean, I know that's an earth-shattering statement. Roe v. Wade was approved in 1973, for God's sakes, 50 years ago. And now this court by 6-3 is talking about overturning it, allowing states to ban abortion. And it's staggering, but it does appear to be highly likely. And this is something we need to discuss in terms of its impact on American democracy, what it says about our country at this point in time. It's amazing to me that people simultaneously can claim that a woman's right to choose does whatever it does to human rights, and then they can turn around and support the death penalty. I mean, to me, it's incomprehensible. So you may want to take a look. My piece, maybe Steve, you can put it in the chat, is at Reader Supported News. And as voting rights activists and human rights activists, it's something we really need to keep an eye on. The Supreme Court seems to have no shame and no braking mechanism, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. Justin LeBlanc, did you have something you wanted to say here? You got your hand?
Yes, so what you said about abortion versus death penalty, the new one is now abortion versus anti-vax. And so people say, you know, you can't do with I have my own rights to my own body. You can't inject a vaccine in there. And so you can invade people's bedrooms and say they can't take out something that, take care of their own bodies and decide what they want to do with their own bodies, huh?
Well, it's amazing to me also that on the one hand, people can say abortion takes a beating heart or whatever they say. And then on the other hand, fight against sex education and the free distribution of birth control. I've never been able to figure that one out. If anybody has an answer to why you would simultaneously oppose abortion, but also oppose sex education and birth control, that one's beyond me.
Criminalization is out of sight, out of mind.
Has an answer to that, but put it in the chat at the Reader Supported News or wherever, because I've got no clue. But this is something that we're going to have to follow. I don't have to tell you, being politically aware people, that the earth is going to shake when these people overturn Roe v. Wade. So just something to put on the back burner. Want to welcome James Fukuda. James, good to see you. Ray Lutz, John BRAKEY will soon also be joined by Steve Rosenfeld, who has a piece. Dennis Bernstein, you're still with us from KPFA. I don't know if you want to chime in on what your upcoming shows are about. If you want to unmute. Also, Molly Baszler, welcome to you for your, I think you're the only political candidate. You may be on the call running for Los Angeles City Council. I do want to make an announcement. I was hearing a weird sound in the background. It is actually raining in Los Angeles. This is Paul Newman. Maybe you did a rain dance. I don't know, but the fact that it appears to have stopped, unfortunately. But I heard this beating on the roof. I thought it was mice, but it's actually raining. Myla, we should be out celebrating dancing in the rain here in Los Angeles. God knows we need it, but hopefully it will come. Okay, we are at the top of the hour. If anyone else has something you want to slip in, because we're going to head to Arizona. Steve Caruso?
Yeah, Ray Lutz and Lulu Friesdat are both here.
Oh, Lulu Friesdat has joined us. Lulu, Lulu is one of our great election protection activists. I see you're next to John Brakey on my screen. Lulu, do you have anything you want to announce about what's going on in New York or elsewhere?
There's two things I'd like to announce. Thank you so much, Harvey. Thanks for this great forum. So we're doing, I'm the executive director of Smart Elections for people who don't know me. And tomorrow night we have a forum that I think is going to be tremendously interesting. We have a legal scholar. His name is Steve Mulroy. He's a law professor at the University of Memphis, and it was a special request from Benny Smith that he come and speak to us because Benny just has tremendous respect for him. And he's going to talk about a whole range of election reforms, but especially focus on ranked choice voting, which is really his specialty. He was one of the lead advocates that helped get the ranked choice voting measure passed in Memphis, although 10 years later, they still haven't implemented it. But he's a strong advocate, and his writing is really lovely. It's very simple and straightforward, but well documented. He has a book out called Rethinking US Election Law, and I'll put the link for that in the chat. But we're going to speak with him tomorrow, Tuesday, 7 p.m. And that's
Eastern time.
Eastern time, sorry. Eastern
you got
time,
the link
7
in the
p.m.
chat? Lulu,
I'll put the link in the chat for you to sign up. The best is just to sign up on our Mobilize site, because then we send you a reminder email and we send you the links where you can watch it. It's on YouTube and Facebook, but sign up, that's the best way. And then I know, Harvey, you were so kind and put out a request that I give you a little information about what happened here in the New York City primary. I don't know how much of it you've covered. It was a bit of a cluster muck. The sort of worst part of it was that the Board of Elections managed to include 135,000 test ballots in with the regular ballots when they did the ranked choice voting, run-throughs. They basically do a whole series of they run the software over and over again, and each time they eliminate one or two candidates. But the first time that they did it, they included these test ballots. So people actually noticed, thankfully. People started tweeting, you've got 130,000 plus more ballots than what you started with. And the ranked choice voting changes the candidate assignment, but it's not supposed to change the number of actual ballots. So people noticed, and within a few hours, the Board of Elections went, oops, yeah, those results aren't valid, and they redid them and they moved on. They apologized profusely. But what's good about it is that there's now been a movement here that there hasn't been previously among the elected officials, like the state Senate majority leader and the assembly leader are all having hearings about the Board of Election competence. And that's really important because we can't have secure, accurate elections when we have complete incompetence at the Board of Elections, which is what we've had for decades here in New York. It's basically a patronage mill, and those positions are just, they're not hired on merit and skill. They are hired based on your connections with the Democrat and the Republican Party. So hopefully, maybe we could actually get some reform through. And then our organization, Smart Elections, did specifically a project. We called it the Brooklyn Transparency Pilot Project. We wanted to check, a simple check in a few locations for like one city council district. Could we match the number of voters who voted with the number of ballots that were scanned? And in fact, we could not. And in one location, we found close to 700 more ballots scanned than voters that were signed in on the electronic poll books, which is just like, what is that? Is that ballot stuffing? Is that electronic poll books out of sync? Is that just like complete, like, we don't know what we're doing? So we're following through with it. We may hire an attorney to try to get more information. The Board of Elections basically just shut our project down immediately, wouldn't give us any more information, couldn't explain it, and basically just literally they banned me as a poll watcher just to stop the project. So that's sort of what we're up to here in New York, is trying to get basic competence at the Board of Elections. That's one of our main tasks right now. So thanks so much for letting me share that.
I mean, this is a clear segue. I mean, we're involved. Again, you couldn't make this stuff up. We're involved in these audits, And, you know, there's a big argument, well, these audits are partisan and it's Trump's people trying to cancel the election, but we need to know how to do audits. This is what happened in 2004. You know, we had all this crazy stuff going on. It was all very partisan, and the Democrats of all people were yelling at us for daring to question an election that was obviously stolen. And then we won a federal case demanding all the election materials in the state of Ohio from the 88 counties. It was supported by the Secretary of State and the federal courts. And we wanted to conduct a meaningful audit. And 56 of the 88 counties in Ohio said they didn't have their stuff from the election, which they were required by federal law to preserve for at 22 months. So here we are 17 years later, and we're going through exactly the same stuff again. I mean, here we have wonderful liberal New York, and you can't even get a decent audit, for God's sakes. Thank goodness we've had ranked choice voting, but you know, it's insane. So thank you, Lula. Lula, you're a true hero. You've got, I hope the link to your call in the chat here.
I'm putting in now, yeah.
Any event that Lulu Friestad is involved with is worth doing. So before we jump into Arizona, does anyone else want to put anything in? Howie Hawkins?
Yeah, you said wonderful liberal New York. I want to dispel your illusions.
Okay.
So Lulu asked,
just because you have a mafia guy running the government doesn't mean it's a Democratic state, right?
Yeah, well, one thing he did was eliminate political parties with a draconian ballot access law that passed under the cover of the COVID lockdown attached to the state budget a year ago. So Lulu called me up to see if she could get a poll watching certificate from the Green Party, and we can't provide it anymore. And I will say about the ranked choice voting in New York, people have to understand it was a very partisan bill they passed. It only applies to primaries, not the general election. So the Green candidates got to deal with a spoiler effect in the general election. Whereas in the primary, you know, Black candidates and female candidates could run against each other without being called spoilers. And so, I mean, one of the lawyers for the Charter Commission, I heard him on a Zoom call the other night saying, we had to do it that way so the Democrats would pass it. You know, it's a partisan piece of legislation. Okay. So that's your progressive New York.
Yeah,
and your
all right.
progressive
Well, listen, we've got 69 people on the call. We're past the top of the hour. Thank you, Howie and Lulu from the report from Lush Liberal New York State. We want, if does anybody else want to jump in now, because we're gonna real quick, because we're gonna be deep in Arizona now. I mean, what's going on there? If I wrote a political novel about it, no one would believe it. Yeah. Art Levine, you're with us. We've got Steve Rosenfeld, John BRAKEY, and Ray Lutz going to give us the lowdown. Art?
Yeah, just I'm very much looking forward to have to say I posted a book recommendation that the author could address this group, and it's Bryn Tranhill. It's a book called American Fascism, How the GOP is Subverting Democracy. And I think it's the most important and prescient political book of the year. And she's going to be on Brad Friedman's show and some other shows. She's been on with J.W. Sexton. It's the most important book, and it is the context in which I'm looking at everything that's going on now in terms of election subversion, vote suppression, and the Arizona audit.
What's the name again, Art?
The book is called American Fascism, How the is Bryn, B-R-Y-N-N, Tannehill. I posted the link to her author's page, and it's a pretty scary book, but it's so scary that it will light a fire on everyone who reads it about, boy, we really have to save our democracy. All
right, I'll definitely get it. I'll definitely get it.
And she could be, I think she could be a guest here, you know, to talk about her findings. Okay.
Put me in touch.
Yeah, okay, I will.
Thank you,
okay.
thank you. Okay, Maya Reason, and then we're gonna go to Steve Rosenfeld. Steve, I hope that car is stationary.
Real quick.
Are you stuck on the Bay Bridge? Is that what the problem is?
No, I'm in a parking lot by a lovely BART station.
Oh, okay. Okay, Myla,
Anyway, real
Myla Reese,
quick,
you want to jump in? Then we'll go to Arizona and Steve Rosenfeld.
early voting is going on right now in Ohio 11 special election for Nina Turner. You can make phone calls via PDA. Contact Mike Fox at PDA America. I called for 2 hours yesterday, and I will put in another 2 hours after this call is over. So please help. Let's get Nina Turner into Congress. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Okay, let's go to Arizona. As we've been promising, it's 3:11 in California. Unfortunately, it stopped raining. But Steve, we have the big three in Arizona on the call with us: Steve Rosenfeld, John BRAKEY, and Ray Lutz. Steve, you just put up a piece or two about Arizona. Fill us in on what's going on, and then we'll go to John and Ray.
Sure. Well, hi, everybody. So today was a really big day, and John BRAKEY will tell you about it. And he played a pretty big part in provoking what happened. And what happened was this: Ken Bennett, who was the former Arizona Secretary of State, the former Arizona State Senate President, and their liaison to this, went on right-wing radio, KFYI in Phoenix AM at 7:03 this morning, and basically said he's going to resign from that position as liaison. Well, he said unless he's given complete authority to do some parts of the audit that have not been done, but it's completely severed from the cyber ninjas. He accused them of and this is a fact, we've known, John and I and Ray have known this for weeks and weeks, of selectively hiding information from them, promising reports, subtotals, and all this stuff, and not delivering it. And then he also said that it looked like they were, and now he's an accountant, by the way, when he was not in political life, of basically cooking the books. It looked to him like they were going to adjust their data to basically make up for the lapses, the sloppiness of their audit process. So that's a really super big deal because, you know, it's one thing for people on the left and even in the center to be criticizing these Republicans, because the Republicans don't give a about these people. They only care about their tribe.
Well, Steve, we can't use that four-letter word, but go ahead.
Okay, sorry about that. They don't really care about these people. They just care about their tribe. And it's very important that trusted messengers to reasonable Republicans, and there are some reasonable Republicans, deliver the message that, hey, these guys are, meaning the Senate's pro-Trump auditors led by the cyber ninjas, are not doing a straight up process. It's not honest. And our third party, supposedly impartial observer is being kept from the details. So that went out on right-wing radio this morning. And the host for that show was just mortified, even though he spent the previous half hour talking about all the ridiculous pro-Trump talking points from the rally this past weekend. He was really shocked. He said it wasn't Trump's audit. It was the people of Arizona's audit. He called it a grift, which I've never heard a right-wing radio person do. And this guy's got a big audience. And basically, you know, he was begging Ken to go back in there under what conditions, and the conditions that he would go back in there, and it's not clear to me that these are going to be met by any means, is that he would get to investigate other avenues where there have been discrepancies in election administration, not unlike what Lulu just mentioned, you know, things of that level, probably not at all to affect the results. But
we're having a technical problem there, Steve. Steve, you're somehow frozen.
Yeah.
Things that could be done better if you had a clearer view of the process.
Can we improve the quality here at all? Can we improve the quality here at all?
I don't know.
What's your
do you hear me at all?
dashboard? Are you on your phone?
No, I'm on my computer with using my laptop as the.
All right, go ahead. Keep talking. Let's hope it's okay.
Okay. So anyway, so John will take over from here. It's a really big deal. The thing that I'm afraid is going to happen here, Harvey, is that Trump kept, you know, throwing candy or bait to the Arizona Attorney General. So it seems to me like what's going to happen here is they're going to issue a report where the findings are quote unquote inconclusive because the Maricopa officials didn't allow them to look at everything they wanted, which is a way to hide their sloppiness. And they're
Steve, maybe you want to call us on your phone.
going to kick it over to the Arizona.
Okay, a great report, Steve. Everybody needs to read his article, his couple articles from Arizona. I mean, what's happened here is that the report, Steve, everybody needs to read his article. Okay, we're having, I guess it's not just Steve. It must be partly me. Can you guys hear me all right?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
I hear you.
All right,
Now
so what's
we're
happening
able
here
to
is
Yeah, you're fine, Harvey.
up.
Cyber Ninjas, which is a Trump, basically a mob group or whoever they are, has gone in at the behest of the Trump people to prove in Arizona that Trump really won the election. And they've run into Republicans led by this guy Bennett, who actually have integrity and who've been working with John BRAKEY and Ray LUTZ, who are genuinely concerned about we do need real audits. And these guys want to do an audit that shows what they want to show, which isn't really an audit. I got to tell you, one of the great moments in Robin Williams' career, he was pretending to be a televangelist who was being prosecuted for tax evasion. And the guy gets up there and he says, the word audit does not appear in the Bible. Only Robin Williams could have said that. But we now know that the word audit does appear in the Bible of election protection. And so this insane scenario in Arizona, I think is going to, because of people like Steve Rosenfeld, Ray LUTZ, and John BRAKEY, is going to backfire on these people. Because we're now getting a primer in how an audit should and should not be conducted. So that in future elections, as from Ohio 2004, we're going to know what we need to do. And we got to remember this guy Bennett, who is a Republican, is a cohort and seems to have integrity, as opposed to the cyber ninjas who are complete scam artists, grifters, mobsters, whatever you want to call them. So John BRAKEY, go ahead, please, and then Ray LUTZ, fill us in. And I do want to remind everybody, as we announced earlier, that this morning, Jesse Jackson and Reverend William Barber were arrested in the Phoenix office of Senator Kirsten Sinema. So we'll talk about that, but let's deal with the audit now. John, the great godfather of the Arizona audit, tell us about it.
Well, it's been an incredible experience. And I just want to say, Lulu, I follow what you're doing in New York. Thank you so much. It's always good to know that there's others out there on the front lines. I also want to send out to Steve for coming into Arizona a couple times and working with me and getting him inside and close. Also to Benny Smith, who came in and spent some time with us. Because it was constantly to make sure that I wasn't getting Stockholm syndrome. I had an obligation working so close with Ken Bennett, who is a fine human being. We worked very closely together. Him and me have been in the same foxhole for several months, protecting each other's back, fighting for transparency, fighting to get at the results and to figure out who the heck are these people we're working with. And then to watch everything that went down, Ken has turned in to be a very big ally, okay? And I hope he joins my board of directors of Audit USA. I hope that he runs for Secretary of State. I hope he gets that position back. I hope that he becomes the president of the United States Secretary of State's Association because he's got an important message. The message is elections aren't any good unless they're transparent, trackable, and publicly verified. The message that we want to get out is that the actual act of voting is the secret process. Counting is a public process, okay? And we see the vision very well. And it's been a great opportunity for me to go into another tribe. I want you to know, I was scared when I first went into this thing and who these people are, and then to figure out who are the real people there, because they want to know if they have a functioning democracy. These people are like what you and me were, Harvey and Lulu and others back in 2000 or 2004 when we fell down this rabbit hole. We are the ones that have the knowledge and an obligation to reach out to our brothers and sisters on the right and help them understand that it's better to understand than to be understood as a person who's manipulated by a person with an orange face.
So basically,
it's incredible. Go ahead. I'll let you.
No, so what we're seeing in Arizona is that essentially it's been characterized as a war between the Trump Senate, which is Republican, and the Board of Elections, which is Republican.
That's right. And that's an important thing you just mentioned. Now, I'm going to say I have my conspiracy theories, okay? And I think that I don't think there was any fraud in the presidential Senate, and the stuff that we're looking at with Larry Moore, Clear Ballot, and Benny White proves that. It proves that there was an effect by John McCain's wife, and also Senator, our last Senator,
Flake.
Come to me. Yeah, Flake, Jeff Flake. And all those statistics shake out, just like Steve has been writing about if you follow that. But I think the biggest statistic is that 78% of the Republicans in the state of Arizona think it was stolen. It was a very super close election. It was only like 10,000. That's 0.3%. I think Ray has gone into that. And I think that the leadership, mainly Fan and Bennett, went into this thing because they have an obligation to their constituents, which I thank Fan for doing that. I wish Democrats in 2004 in Arizona would have stood up with us election integrity folks back then and looked into it, rather than making me, runner-up for Democrat of the Year in 2005. I'd rather see results. And now that in Arizona, it's very clearly that we do have Republicans and Democrats, and the whole country should be concerned about elections. And we do need audits. Like I said, elections aren't any good unless they're transparent, trackable, and publicly verified using simple audit systems that Ray Lutz has developed with us and working separately but in harmony. It's amazing what possibly good that can come out of this. And I urge other people to reach out to the right and listen, and then help guide them and make them understand that it's not good to be understood as an idiot who follows a person with an orange face. Now, you can't say it that way, but you can know that and help them understand, because a lot of them are our brothers and sisters. It's easier for me to deal with these folks up there than it was to deal with my own brother and sister who have really gone QAnon.
Okay. Joel Segal, did you want to jump in here real quick?
Yeah. Hey, John, how you doing, man?
Good, my friend. Good to be back.
Good to see you. So I just want to read you a paragraph, and then I'm going to ask you a question. A Georgia judge last week awarded a group the chance to review mail ballots in a large Georgia county that includes Atlanta, i.e. Black people. I put that in there. Officials in a rural Michigan county on Tuesday debated a review of their voting machines. A similar debate has caused sharp divisions in a New Hampshire town. In some cases, the efforts have been inspired by an audit of the vote in Arizona's Maricopa County. Here's the question. So former Undersecretary of State Robert Wilson last week said he predicted that other states would replicate what happened in Arizona. And in other words, if we're going to have a full theft of democracy and a march to authoritarianism, what a great way to do it by saying, oh, you know what, even though we don't know about any possible fraud, we'll just go ahead and do a recount anyway. And from a legal point of view, and we have a lot of lawyers here, why is it that you can just, without any legal standing or any proof, call for a recount? Where does Congress come in? Where does the Justice Department come in? Where does the Attorney General come in? Why is this being allowed to happen? And could this not lead to an authoritarian takeover by the right wing in certain states, where if they have enough of electoral college votes, they can get another Trump in?
John Brakey?
You're absolutely right. And I agree with what you're saying. I did not initiate this audit, but I went to it because I knew I could have an effect. I knew that I could influence good people out of group think, out of stupid group think. And that's what it's about. Doing nothing is not an option. It's not a solution. It is being able to go ahead and see an opportunity and take advantage of it, and with respect, deal with them that way and help them understand. This thing will end as what we said in the beginning it would be. We're not going to let Doug, Anon, Logan of Cyber Ninjas or these other clowns take this thing over. It took a lot of patient work for me and Ray and Steve and others to get involved and to help them get where they are now, that we just caused a revolt, working with other good Republicans. There are some good ones out there.
Well, you know what?
There's a lot of them who are following an authoritarian leader. We have to
John?
help them understand and break up the group think.
I think what needs to happen is that there needs to be a definitive multi-state handbook so that in 2022, we can be very comfortable with people who are demanding audits because we'll know how to do them. I mean, that's the point. Audit should not be a dirty word. It should be something that we welcome and that we know how to do. Art Levine, I know you've done a lot of writing on this.
But if I could just say one thing to Joel, is if I could say, Joel, thank you for that question. Very important question. And because, you know, I want people to understand what was our motives, what did we are trying to achieve and still doing.
Okay, let's do Art Levine and then Ruth Strauss, and then we'll go to Ray Lutz.
Yeah.
Art, did you want to say something?
As John and Ray know from my very disturbed and alarmed comments in the listserv that Ray runs, Election Integrity, I did want to ask, I'm still twofold, I guess. One is, since the appointing of, first of all, the appointing of cyber ninjas at the very beginning was a clear sign of bad intention, since it was very, very well known that this guy was all in on conspiracy thinking and had already publicly declared his views and had no background or experience in election reviews before. So the critique that those of us have had, and it's been reinforced by my reading of the investigative journalism and books like American Fascism, this audit is a sent as run and conceived. So Ken Bennett may be a person of honor, but he was responding to the general political pressure in the Republican Party and base that the election was stolen. And the act from the very beginning of appointing cyber ninjas and in any way serving as a consultant, showing up at press releases, at press conferences, being the informal spokesperson to explain things, as John often was and is, gave it needless credibility and was basically furthering what is a wide-ranging attempt to promote what amounts to competitive authoritarianism by 2025. This is part of the plan. So I never understood why from the very beginning, since Cyber Ninjas was so manifestly biased, unqualified, and linked to the very worst conspiracism of the GOP, why you got involved with them to begin with.
Okay, that's
well, I thought I explained is that what doing nothing's not an option. Do you think I could have stopped it from happening? I did not let them call me a Democrat. If they had to prefer me as a progressive. And I always pointed out that I wasn't there as a progressive Democrat either. I am a consultant to Ken Bennett. And by the way, Ken did not hire these people. He came in, he drafted me just after he got in. And that was way before Doug Logan got appointed and the whole thing. They tried to get Helen Purcell to be the liaison. And thank God she wasn't. She'd have to go home for lunch to find her way home at night. And that was the way she was 10 years ago. Okay. I don't think the progress that we have wouldn't been made without having Ken Bennett there as the afterthought.
Yeah, and you know,
okay?
Steve
And they
Rosenfeld,
blocked
did
them
you
all
want to
away.
comment
I
on
gave
this?
us the opportunity where we are today.
Yeah,
Steve Rosenfeld, you want to comment on this, and then Ray?
yes, I want to just respond to Joel. So Joel, I've heard from a lot of lawyers, former Justice Department voting section attorneys, that the current Justice Department has really been screwing this up badly. They did not follow up the letter they sent in mid-May to Arizona President Karen Fann, basically threatening them for mishandling the possible, like, you know, removal of the ballots and transporting them and handling, breaking the chain of custody. Similarly, there have been no, so you would expect if they write that letter and nothing happens, you go back into court very soon. Similarly, there have been no letters like that in Pennsylvania, in Georgia, in Florida, in Texas, you know, these other states, Wisconsin, Michigan. And so that's just something I've heard, and maybe people that are in your circles might be able to talk about that. It's really unfortunate. The other thing is that I have heard the same lawyers be very, very critical of the Democratic Party and Mark Elias for pursuing what became the Supreme Court case that gutted Section 2. And their main point is, unlike Thurgood Marshall in his day, the Democrats will file suits over everything, even when they're told not to. And if some of these things go up on appeal to the Supreme Court and they don't have all the evidence there, they lose, and then we lose. So this is kind of out there too. I mean, I know this is a complicated environment and the world's not perfect, but these are supposed to be our representatives. And
yeah, it's amazing. And Steve, your reporting on this has been really good. Ray Lutz, did you want to jump in? We're almost out of recorded time. We're going to stay with this, but Ray, I want to make sure you got on the recording.
Okay. Well, I do think it's a pretty good question that Art did ask, and I think it's a good question about how did Doug Logan get hired? I still don't know the answer to that. I do think it has to do with who's providing the money for this. We heard it was $150,000 that the Senate paid. Now it's gone up to $9 million, something like that. And there's a lot of their operators, GOP operators, that are orchestrating this, and a lot of opportunists that are jumping forward now saying that they want audits. I don't think they really want them. They just want to act like they want them so that they get some points. Now, I just wanted to comment on what's going on, because we've been trying to monitor this, and I think it's super important to monitor audits of any kind. I don't care if you agree with it or not. If you think it's crazy, monitor it even more. Because if you don't monitor it and make sure that they're sticking to the facts, then they'll make stuff up. And so in this case, we had them use tally sheets and not enter them, not be transparent. We haven't seen any results yet from any of these tally sheets so that anybody can double check it. And now I think what's happened is that they have found that they're off. They don't know what's going on because the tallies were off. So they brought in these new counting machines, and they've been going through all of the ballots, recounting just not the votes on them, but just how many ballots there are, and trying to get that indexed into some of the other information about how many were in each batch and so forth. So I think that they discovered that since we were watching them, look, they were trying to get away with just providing 15 totals. There's only 5 things on the ballot. They were going to provide the totals from each of the 3 counters for those 5 things. And we said, not good enough. There are 10,000 some odd batches here. You should provide totals for every single batch so that we can check those batches to what the computer report says, not just the grand totals. Because otherwise what they'll do is they'll cherry pick, take all the high numbers for Biden or something and the low numbers for Trump and go, see, it came out this way because they were able to bias it. Without checking each batch, you can easily do that. And so we have to be on top of this. Look, I would be against this audit the way it's run, no question about it. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but also you can't, as John said, we can't turn a blind eye to it and just boycott it. We have to say, all right, we have to get involved. I really want to hand a round of applause to John for getting in there and, you know, trying to work with these guys is something that I wouldn't be able to do very well. He's been able to make friends with these people and work with them, and they're getting along with them just fine. This is great, and it's what we need to do in order to make sure that this doesn't go off course.
Well, I believe, let me, we're almost, go ahead, Dave. Can you finish up and then I'll sign off and then we'll continue off of not being recorded.
No, that's pretty much, I think John filled it in. Thanks for the
Yeah,
time.
so I believe, you know, Art, you and others raised very valid questions at the beginning of this Arizona fiasco. The ninjas are just, it's not even a group. It's just a typical scam artist. The Republicans in the legislature wanted to prove that Trump had won the election and then had been stolen. The Republicans at the Board of Elections, certainly with tremendous guidance from John BRAKEY and Ray LUTZ, and then Steve Rosenfeld's writing, have been willing to pursue the idea of actually doing an audit. What a concept. And then since these audits have not been common or well done, you guys really pioneered how to do a decent audit. And we're seeing this now as an issue in New York and elsewhere. So hopefully this whole miasma will lead us into a place where we can produce a document, a chain of events, of guidance, where real, important, reliable audits actually can be done going forward. What a concept. That's my idea, anyway, of a best case scenario. We're going to continue this discussion post-recording. I want to thank Mike Hirsch and Steve Caruso for doing their usual stellar job as engineers. Joel Segal, my co-convener. We've gone for 90 minutes. We still have more than 60 people on with us. This has been the 58th Zoom call, Grassroots Emergency Election Protection Zoom call. And we are going to continue. Thank you for being with us.
Was there
Thank
an
you
Adam?
to those of you at PRN.
Was there an Eve, or did we evolve from what we conceived? Either way, we got what we needed when the sun shone down on the Garden of Eden.